Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here virtually in sunny Arizona. My name is Joanna Ezra, WAHEC Director. This is the first of two series of the autism webinar called Autism and Applied Behavior Analysis, sponsored by Regional Center for Border Health and Western Arizona Area Health Education Center. We would like to thank our partners, SARC, the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center, and the Arizona Telemedicine Program, especially Melanie, for helping us coordinate this event. And a special thanks to our President and CEO and former Arizona State Senator, Ms. Amanda Aguirre, for bringing us our presenter, Kelsey Schimmel, clinical consultant at SARC. Kelsey is a board certified and licensed behavior analysis. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our wonderful presenter.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction. So excited to be here with you guys today. We only have an hour, but definitely trying to cram in as much information and helpful strategies as we can. To get us started, I'm going to share a little information with you about my journey in this field and why I have such a passion for inclusion. I worked directly with children that have a diagnosis of autism and their families for about 9 years. Along the way, I learned a lot about autism, and I honestly feel like I learned something new every day still. It all started with an elementary school here in Tempe, Arizona, who had students diagnosed with autism enroll for the first time. There were 3 students in the whole campus that had a diagnosis, and they didn't know much about autism, but wanted to make sure they could best support these students. At the time, I also didn't know much about autism, so we had to pull together resources and people who did. We identified how to create a resource group that would support students with autism learning how to build friendships while also teaching all students about autism. They wanted to create dialogue around inclusion, and even though they weren't sure how to do it, they knew they wanted to work towards it. That year, we ended the first autism resource group with one participant saying, "This is the first time I have 3 friends. They don't like penguins as much as I do, but they still like me." And one of his 3 new friends said, "Well, I like being your friend." And it was really that simple. I thought then, and still think now, how could something as complex as inclusion be so easy for these 3rd graders? And what could we learn from them? What could we take away? How do we create more of that? So that's my journey. I know that there is a wide variety of healthcare providers, social workers, caregivers joining us today, and I must give you all a shout out. I've supported children with autism at doctor visits, first dentist appointments, haircuts, summer camps, schools, and along the way I've met some pretty incredible providers and caregivers, like the dentist who let my client and I come for every single week for 2 months for what we call the happy visit, just to play in the lobby and get her comfortable, so that her first dentist appointment wasn't as scary or unfamiliar. Then there was the doctor who took off his Superman necktie for my 3-year-old client, just so that he could build some rapport with him before doing the well visit. These are the moments we're all here to create more of, to better understand autism, and to build a more inclusive community. So inclusion will really be the root about what I talk about today. And I know that everyone will have a different background, will be at a different point in their journey. You may know someone with autism, or you may not. You may know some of the things that I talk about today, or you may be hearing all of this for the very first time. But I hope that we all leave today with a collective inspiration to work towards building a more inclusive community. You all being here today is a really great example of our community continuing to push the inclusion needle forward. So thank you. I'm going to take a moment to guide you through what you can expect today. I will quickly debrief you on who SARC is and the services that we provide. We'll also talk about some information and examples to better understand autism. And then we'll wrap up with some strategies that may be helpful when interacting with someone who has a diagnosis of autism. It's really important to me that you hear directly from someone who has a diagnosis of autism. So in this clip, the speaker, Ian, is an adult from our Transition Academy program here at SARC. and he will tell you about his journey of having a diagnosis of autism. Introducing him is SARC's CEO and President, Daniel Openden.
3 weeks ago, SARC began a new partnership with Denise's new nonprofit, First Place, to begin operating the First Place Transition Academy. Our initial cohort of students just moved into a foundation for senior living multi-generational property that co-locates 6 two-bedroom apartments for adults with autism with 15 apartments for seniors. The purpose of the academy is to teach adults with autism how to live independently within 2 years, maximizing the number of choices they have and reducing costs for families and our state. We have already learned some valuable lessons. If you want to learn to live independently, then you need to get out of mom and dad's house and start living independently. And it is truly my privilege to introduce to you one of the first students in the Residential Transition Academy, Ian McCoy. You're gonna nail it.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ian McCoy. I'm 20 and I have autism. I am a man with dreams and on the path to accomplish his dreams. When I was a freshman in high school, my mom told me that I had autism. At first, I thought it was a bad thing, but I came to realize that autism just means that I learn differently. It also means I have great memory, intense focus, and ability to learn the subjects that I'm interested in. It also has helped me become a songwriter. High school was a pretty good experience for me.
Yeah, I saw it.
Like many people in high school, I was bullied and teased by a few of the kids in my school, but it helped me to learn, express myself, and stick up for myself with my words. I was actually kind of a celebrity at my school. You see, my dream in life is to become a famous musician and a hip-hop artist. And when I was asked to perform for my school, it was my first opportunity to show the guys and girls what I was all about. I was so nervous. I was shaking. When I stepped up to the mic, I closed my eyes and said to myself, Ian McCoy, you can do this. And I did. I will never forget the sound of applause from that day. When I graduated from high school in May of 2013, I felt like a free man. It was time for me to not only chase my dreams, but to run them down. I enrolled at Scottsdale Community College, but it wasn't the right fit for me. My mom heard about SARC, and I enrolled in a number of programs, including a financial management class, where I learned the difference between a want and a need. Three things that I learned from that class: how to budget my money, how to use it wisely, and to save for big things, such as a car. And I am on my way. April has been a big month for me. This month, I started a new job at the Fractured Prune Donut Shop in Cityscape in downtown Phoenix. This is such a cool place. Have you been there? All the donuts are hand-dipped and ready to order. My favorite, Marshmallow Madness, made with marshmallow cream and miniature marshmallows. You see, I'm a health-conscious guy, but everyone deserves a donut now and then. My other news was on April 6th. I moved into my first apartment with the First Place Transition Academy at 29 Palms. This is an exciting time, and I look forward to being part of the real world and learning to live independently. At First Place, we are learning the skills to live in a good life, make new friends, and become independent. I still don't really get girls yet. Some guys have told me that could take a lifetime. For now, I focus on other areas in my life, and I have plenty of time. In closing, I have found, with a positive attitude, you could achieve anything you want in life. You just need to take the first step. To quote Martin Luther King, faith is taking the first step, even if you don't see the whole staircase. And it's important for you to remember that you can't judge a book by its cover. If you open the pages, you just may find a person of great value and skill. Please don't underestimate people with autism. Open the book and take the time to understand all that we have to offer.
I love that video. He has such a vibrant personality, and it's so wonderful to hear about the meaningful life that he's living. I would love to just pause really quick and get to know a little bit about your experience. Is this the first time that you are hearing from an adult with autism? If you could type it into the chat now, we would love to hear more about your personal experience. Awesome. See a few answers coming through, some yeses and some nos. Awesome. Thank you.
Kelsey,
Yes.
you might want to stop screen sharing your video's a little behind, so it's still playing the video. So
okay, thank you.
No problem.
Is it still playing the video? Let's see.
So go ahead and screen share it.
Reshare. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you, Chris. Okay.
Do you have optimized video checked?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Go ahead and uncheck that. That usually will slow.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good to know. Thank you. Okay. There we go. Okay. We'll jump into a little information about SARC next. And SARC stands for Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center. And it's been established in 1997. So we've been around researching and providing services to individuals with autism for 24 years. We currently have 4 different locations and will continue to expand, hoping to have sites in every pocket of Arizona by the year 2030. SARC was co-founded by a woman named Denise Resnick, whose son was diagnosed with autism. Her and her husband were told by doctors at the time that the only option was to institutionalize their son or commit to being his caretaker in every aspect of his life for the rest of his life. Back then, autism was uncharted territory. We didn't know enough about it, and there were hardly any resources. So Denise wanted to build something in the Phoenix community that could be a resource, a place of support for their son, and all individuals that have autism. At SARC, we have a variety of programs to support individuals with autism across the lifespan. So that means there's something for the itty bitty babies who have an at-risk diagnosis, all the way up to adults who are looking for their first job or want to live on their own. On the 2 left greenish columns, you'll see a list of programs that we offer for children ages 0 to 13. And on the right 2 columns, you'll see services we offer for teens and adults 13 and up. We have clients who are well into their 50s, so it definitely doesn't stop at early intervention. Each program is specifically tailored for that age group, and the support someone receives is individualized based on their needs. Talking through each program would honestly require an additional 12 hours to the presentation, so I won't do that. But I do want to highlight our parent training program. SARC provides parent training in a variety of lengths and formats, in person and online. And the programs include Jumpstart for newly diagnosed families, Second Gear for challenging behaviors at home, and a 1-week or 12-week program focused on communication skills. I also want to note that grant funding is available, and if you want to learn more, you can check out SARC's website and click Request Services. At the end of this presentation, I will have our website and my contact information up on the screen, and you'll actually receive it in the evaluation via email. Okay, so we've covered who SARC is, and we're not necessarily here to talk about SARC. So next we'll dive into autism, some basic information, examples, and then we'll dive into what is ABA and strategies that you can use. So you've probably heard that autism is becoming more and more prevalent each year. And the current numbers are 1 in 54 for US adults and 1 in 45 for US children. Sorry, 1 in 54 for US children and 1 in 45 for US adults. We have a common saying here at SARC where if you've met one person with autism, you've met only one person with autism. It is a spectrum and everyone is so very different. There are CDC monitoring sites across the cities in the US. So this number doesn't necessarily capture every single person who has a diagnosis of autism, but it's an approximation to evaluate the prevalence from year to year. Something you should know about the monitoring sites is that there is even a range of prevalence from state to state. So there is a low of 1 in 76 in Colorado and a high of 1 in 32 in New Jersey. This may be due to how autism is diagnosed and documented in different communities. We can also attribute some of the increased prevalence to significant progress being made by the number of children who are receiving developmental screenings by the age of 3, which is crucial for early intervention and early detection. Okay, so what is autism? It's a developmental disorder, and since it is a spectrum, one person with a diagnosis of autism may have different strengths and different needs than another. The two core symptoms, however, are social communication and restricted repetitive patterns of behavior. In order for someone to receive a diagnosis, they would need to have deficits under these two domains. I'll briefly provide you an example of each. Let's start with social communication. Someone with autism may struggle with learning and using language. Maybe they have limited vocabulary and speak with 1 to 2 word approximations. Other times, someone may use full-phrased speech and sentences, have a robust vocabulary, but struggle to engage in conversation and social scenarios. Now for restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior, some examples that you've probably seen or maybe you've heard of are flapping hands. This can be tied to sensory overload, excitement, challenging moments, a variety of reasons really, but some other less talked about examples might be doing something over and over again, or needing something to be done in a specific way, following the exact same routine every time. Now, I shared a few examples of what social communication deficit could look like, but let's talk about what it actually is. Disclaimer here, someone with autism may not show deficits with each of these categories. They may really excel at 2 and only really struggle with 1. We might see someone under the social communication domain struggle with social emotional reciprocity, like reduced sharing of emotion, deficits in nonverbal communication, like limited eye contact, lack of open body language, limited facial expressions or gestures. Additionally, we sometimes see difficulty developing and maintaining relationships. They may not initiate with others, or they may not initiate in a way that we consider to be appropriate. But we also know that this doesn't mean they don't want to engage in social interactions or that they do not enjoy them. Someone with autism may just be unsure on what to do or say in that moment, especially if they are in a new environment with new people around them. For example, if it's their first time at an appointment, they may not respond to your questions as an unfamiliar person, or may not respond if they're overwhelmed by the unfamiliar environment. A new place can make anyone feel uneasy, really, and especially those with a diagnosis of autism. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try to play this video. Let me know if the buffering is still causing some troubles.
Orange, orange, and red. There we go. See? You do it again. You got it? Okay. Good job. Good. Go ahead. You do it. You gonna do it? Go on, you do it. Why don't you do it? Oh, okay. Here, blue. Which one do you want? Green?
So you probably noticed that the boy guided his mom's hand to pick up the pieces, but it's also hard to tell if he likes this interaction. They weren't necessarily looking at each other, smiling while they were engaging. And mom was probably really unsure if he wanted to do it again until he moved her hand. So when you hear the reference lack of eye contact during social interactions, this is an example of what it might look like. The second core deficit that I mentioned is restricted repetitive patterns of behavior. Do not try to say that 5 times fast. I can confirm it is statistically impossible, but these can be fixated, restricted interests that are abnormal in intensity or focus. So I like this one thing and I like it a lot. Also hyper or hypo, reactivity to sensory input or an unusual interest in sensory aspects. So if you were at the beach and there was a child with autism, you might notice them picking up the sand, watching it fall, picking up the sand, watching it fall for hours. And another example you've probably heard of is that kids who line up toys are a red flag for autism. But this doesn't automatically mean a child has autism. Most children do line up their toys. It's when it's so pervasive that they don't play with the toys in any other way. They don't allow anyone to join, disrupt, or add novelty to that play. This could elicit some concern during an evaluation. Restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior could also look like an excessive adherence to routines, ritualized patterns of vocal behavior, or excessive resistance to change. If something deviates outside of someone's usual routine, that can be a challenge. For example, maybe a child goes to the park every Tuesday after school, but this Tuesday they have a doctor's appointment. This is outside of their usual routine. I'm going to go ahead and play another video for you so you can see what that looks like.
These are cool blocks, huh? Can you carry them all? That's amazing. You are so strong. Look at all those blocks. That's amazing. What a neat. How did you decide to? I got you. Where that's it there. This is the sort of how he plays usually at home. Kerplunk.
It's all just distracting. There's 3 of him.
There's 3 of him. He's one of triplets?
No, he's a twin. I mean, there's one that's a year younger.
And is it an identical twin?
Mm-hmm. But they're all like this.
They all have. Looking at genetics a little bit, and Maybe we can bump that a little bit. You like my friend? All right, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him.
Okay, so restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior could very well be something you observe during an interaction with someone who has a diagnosis of autism, and there really isn't anything to be concerned about or that you'll need to do in that moment, but I do want you to be aware of what it might look like. We've talked about the way that what people that have a diagnosis of autism have in common. Now let's talk through a few ways that you can expect to observe differences. Remember, if you've met one person with autism, you've only met one person with autism. So I'm going to walk you through an example of two adults that have a diagnosis. We're going to say they're both 24-year-old women. Example A, the 24-year-old female with autism may have tested gifted her whole life. Always way above her peers with reading, math, and science. She has near typical communication, but no desire or limited skills with her peers. So she doesn't really communicate with them unless it's about a topic she really, really likes. Example B, another 24-year-old female that has a diagnosis of autism. She shows significant impairment during testing, does not have vocal communication. She uses what we call an augmentative communication device, but she has strong desire for social interaction. She always uses her device to request for different games like kickball with her siblings in the backyard, or going on a hike with her family every morning. They are both 24-year-old females. They both have a diagnosis of autism, but you can see they are so different. You have some background on who SARC is now and a foundation of what autism is. Next, we'll discuss applied behavior analysis and strategies that may support future interactions. This is probably the juicy stuff and what you all came for, so we'll spend a lot of time here. As I'm talking through strategies, take a moment to reflect. What were you hoping to learn today? What is something you would like to walk away with? If I haven't covered it yet, write that question down somewhere now or type it into the chat. And if by the end of this section, I haven't gotten to it, I want to give you, definitely give you time at the end during our designated Q&A portion to answer those questions. So before we dive into strategies, I'm going to talk a little bit about applied behavior analysis, a scientific technique based on the principles of respondent and operant conditioning to change behavior of social significance. During assessments and interviews with the family or the individual diagnosed with autism, there is a collaborative approach to identifying what those socially significant goals are. It might be teaching somebody how to get dressed independently, how to take turns with siblings or peers, how to cook safely, maybe extra practice with math skills to better understand the exchange of money. Whatever the targeted skill might be, we use the science to determine if the strategies or teaching methods that we're using are increasing a desirable behavior or decreasing an undesirable behavior. The social validity behind it, are we improving the quality of a behavior that is socially significant? So is this something that they will need to know in their everyday life? Will this help them be more independent, maybe? And how do we develop and teach this new behavior or skill? This is the framework of ABA. The expectation is not that you necessarily understand and begin implementing procedures of ABA, but I do think that understanding the framework and understanding behavior contingencies will help in your future interactions. So behavior can be described using the three-term contingency. This is sometimes referred to as the ABCs of behavior analysis, which honestly makes it really easy to remember, so I love that. This framework is not only applicable to individuals with autism, but your everyday interactions with everyone. Let's break it down a little bit more. The first stop in the three-term contingency is the antecedent. That's the A. So what comes before the behavior? They are stimulus events, situations, or circumstances that precede a response. So what or who was present right before the behavior occurred? This will also help you identify the potential reason behind the response that you're observing. That jargon can get really nerdy really fast, so let's talk a relatable example. You bring a child a plate of vegetables. They throw the plate. You notice this happens a few days in a row, and you've identified, hey, I think it's the vegetables. Every time I bring them out, they throw the plate. The presentation of the vegetables would be the antecedent. Next up, B is for behavior. In the example I previously mentioned, the behavior is throwing the plate. In this case, it is an undesirable behavior, so we want to decrease and ultimately eliminate this behavior. But sometimes in a three-term contingency, we are hoping to increase the behavior. We want to teach a new skill, or we want to see more of a behavior that is what we're looking for. Behaviors are mostly considered to be skills and actions needed to talk, play, and live. Again, those socially significant behaviors. They are observable and measurable, so things that we see or hear. So far in my example, we've gone through the A and the B. The antecedent is the plate of vegetables, and the B is behavior for throwing the plate. The final stop in the three-term contingency is the consequence. We know this word historically in the context of something like, there are serious consequences for doing blank. There's almost a negative connotation tied to it, but what consequence truly means is what happens after the behavior. This will often make the behavior more or less likely to occur again in the future. Consequences occur most commonly without intention or planning. Let's revisit our plate throwing example. If each time the plate is thrown, the vegetables are picked up and thrown away because, well, they were on the ground, to the caregiver, they see it as cleaning up a mess or getting rid of food that has been contaminated by the floor covered in dog hair, as is my house, at least. And the child, they view it as, I don't have to eat the vegetables. They're just making that connection. I don't want to eat them. I threw the plate and that worked. That may be unintentional on the caregiver's part, but to the child, they see that it worked. So the consequence was the vegetables went in the trash and the child did not have to eat them. Next time they see vegetables, they will remember the sequence and they will keep doing that. We're going to put that example all together now. Antecedent, caregiver puts down a plate of vegetables. Behavior, child throws the plate of vegetables. Consequence, caregiver picks up vegetables and throws them in the trash. Let's say that you really didn't want a plate thrown every time your child saw vegetables, and rightfully so. You might consider manipulating the antecedent. So what came before the behavior? And you have a pretty good idea at this point that it's the vegetables on the plate that elicits the throwing plate behavior. So let's switch up the approach. Maybe you bring the child an empty plate next time with the vegetables on a spoon in your hand, but definitely not on the plate. The child doesn't throw the empty plate, and you immediately give them their favorite snack, a goldfish, and say, nice job, leaving the plate on the table. You then present the spoon of vegetables and say, take a bite of vegetables, or you can tell me no. Here, you manipulated the antecedent. You changed what happened before you typically see the child throw the plate. You decided to put down an empty plate and have the vegetables on a spoon in your hand instead, so that they couldn't throw them. You point out that you saw the desired behavior, the plate stayed on the table, and you gave them reinforcement to sweeten the deal, a goldfish, which to children can be literal actual gold. Now our ABC sequence looks like this. They have now learned a new sequence that did not involve throwing the plate every time they're offered vegetables. We are decreasing the throwing plate behavior by manipulating what usually happens before it. And a side note, don't worry, if this example were real life, we would also be working on teaching the child to tolerate eating some vegetables. So that it doesn't just go away magically forever, right? That's just one example of the 3-term contingency, but the reality is we contact this multiple times per day. Our phone rings, we either answer or click ignore if it's a solicitor, let's be honest. If we're driving in our cars, the light changes from yellow to red and we stop our car, our alarm goes off in the morning. And if you're like me, you hit snooze at least twice before you actually get out of bed, but the alarm did wake you up. And all of this is just to set the stage of thinking about and understanding behaviors in a new light, not just the behavior you saw or heard, but what happened before and what happened after. Now, the stuff you probably all came for, strategies that may support interactions with individuals with a diagnosis of autism. I recognize that there are a variety of people here today and all different backgrounds. So as you hear examples, I want you to really think about and write down, if you can, an applicable example for yourself. If you hear me mention an example at the dentist office, I think about what it might look at home or at school. These are a few antecedent-based strategies that can support your interactions before they even get started. Think of it as starting off on the right foot, setting clear expectations and supporting them through something that might be hard or that they don't like. Motivation is up first. The simplest way to think of motivation is to ask the person what they like. If it's a young child, you can ask the caregiver what they like. And this should really always be the first step. If something is too hard or too new, it could deter anyone from doing it. So when supporting someone with a diagnosis, motivation will be key for them to be successful and will help when giving instructions. Now, what would this look like in terms of supporting a teen or adult with autism? If we know the individual loves Minecraft and we are working on strengthening the number of conversational exchanges, we might say, I'm going to ask you 2 questions about your day. Then I want you to ask me 2 questions about my day. And afterwards, we can talk about Minecraft for 3 minutes. So I'm using something that they like to motivate them to do something they don't really enjoy or to practice something that's maybe hard for them. However, I do not assume that someone likes something. If me offering everyone a sticker is nice, but if someone doesn't like a sticker, it just won't be motivating. And even if I know they like something, I do not assume they want it in that moment. So I love French fries. I would eat them 10 out of 10 days. But if I just finished eating at a buffet, I'm going to be super full and I'm actually going to turn down the French fries in that moment. I'll shed a single tear doing it, but I will turn them down. Building rapport is something that is commonly touched on in all trainings, but it really is so important. Remember that cute story at the very beginning of this presentation that I told you about my 3-year-old client, and the doctor took off his Superman necktie. That was real. It was spur of the moment, and the child didn't necessarily request for it, but he showed interest in it. And so he gave it to him, asked him if he wanted to wear it, and then asked him if he wanted to wear his stethoscope. This interaction took maybe 3 minutes, but it went from the child cowering in his mother's lap to him walking up to the doctor and successfully allowing him to listen to his breathing. It was flawless. Finding areas like this to build rapport may not always be this easy or this spur of the moment, but thinking back to motivation, you really could just ask the individual, what do you like? Maybe they love the color red and you search for red objects in your office. Or maybe it's Peppa Pig and you draw your fanciest stick figure version of Peppa Pig on a blank sheet of paper. Just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to try. Choices. Choices are powerful. They're definitely my go-to. So you let the individual decide what they want or what they want to do first. It gives them control, which can help anyone feel at ease during an unfamiliar interaction or a difficult interaction. Do you want to change a diaper in 1 minute or right now? Do you want to walk this way or that way back to my office? Do you want me to listen to your heart first or look into your ears first? There are thousands of ways to embed choices into every interaction. I like to think of this as compassionate control. I'm saying we really have to do this thing, but you can decide when or how. Or we have to do these two things, but you can decide which is first. I want to pause here for about 20 seconds, and I want you to write down a choice you could use in your next interaction. Based on your role, maybe you're at a hospital or maybe you're a caregiver at home, just think about a choice that you could embed in your next interaction. Maybe it's with your patient or your client or your child, anyone. And if you're feeling brave, I would love to see some in the chat. So I will give you about 20 seconds here. A choice activity to do for the day, absolutely. So would you like to color or do you want to do puzzles? That is a great one. Thank you, Amanda. Awesome. I'm going to expand on choices a little bit more and relate it back to inclusion, how we kind of started this whole discussion. In this modern day COVID world, navigating mask requirements has become our new normal. Some facilities have extras for visitors who forget one, or maybe their mask broke as they were putting it on to enter. But I'm going to walk you through how to take something from an accommodation to stellar inclusion. Now, I recognize that there are budgets to consider, and you will have a better understanding for what is feasible at your organization or at home, or what your role is. But this is just a relatable point of reference. At the top, you see a standard blue mask. This is something that maybe you have available at your facility to provide to any staff or visitors who need it. This is a good thing. You're providing a resource to your community. And in this same example, I want to offer a few ways to really shoot for stellar inclusion. In the left-hand bottom corner, there are some options for people to choose a preferred color, pattern, etc. of a mask. If a person with autism struggles to wear a mask or refuses to wear a mask, they will benefit from having the choice of which mask to wear. If they happen to love outer space and there's a mask with planets on it, it could increase the likelihood that they will wear one. Of course, this does not guarantee that they will wear one, but having the option, the choice, is a great accommodation and strategy. Another option to consider, having masks that have a clear lining for staff so that people can read their lips or see that the staff have a friendly, smiling face. Individuals with autism can find social interactions difficult to navigate, as we've talked about in previous slides. So reading social expressions can be challenging. Add a mask to that, and it really makes social situations even more difficult. There are also other populations who may really rely on reading lips. So this one accommodation that could support individuals diagnosed with autism could actually support many individuals. And then one more option in the bottom right-hand corner, that is a picture of a mask insert. This could benefit people who have sensory discomfort from the mask. This would just offer additional support to that mask requirement. All of these options ultimately showing, yes, masks are required. And here are a few ways that we are striving to meet the needs of all of our visitors to be inclusive. Okay, clear instructions, also very important for everyone involved, really. Something to think about that I observe often is the difference between asking a question and giving a clear instruction. If someone asks me, do you want to get on the scale? My answer, quite frankly, is no, I don't want to. I don't want to know what that number is. I've been blissfully working from home in sweatpants for far too long. So no, thank you. And if you think about it, you asked and I said no. Now on the flip side, if somebody says, okay, it's time to get your weight, go stand on the scale right there. One is a question and one is a clear instruction, but both are expecting the same outcome. So being clear and concise will avoid confusion and some refusals. Now, what happens if someone says no either way? And this will happen. It's happened 1 million times in my career, and that's probably a low ball. Circle back to that motivation piece. You're asking them to do something they really don't like, or that is really hard for them. So what's in it for them? Here you could use something we call first then language. Let's say I'm super into iPhone games, and in the same scenarios above, you might say, okay, Kelsey, first we're going to step on the scale. I'm going to write down your weight. Then you can have 10 minutes of playing an iPhone game while you wait for the doctor to come in. You can coordinate this plan with the caregiver or individual before you deliver the instruction. You'll just need to think about, is what I'm about to do new or hard? What is available right now? What is feasible right now? To give some examples for at home, first we need to brush your teeth, then you can color for 5 minutes before bed. For those at work, we need to meet this deadline by Friday. Let's focus on the service agreement. Then we can take a break and grab some coffee. Any age group, any setting, clear instructions and motivation are definitely key. Modeling is also another useful strategy to help provide clear instructions, especially if someone is doing something for the first time and does not know what to expect, or maybe the instructions are complex. You can show them exactly what you mean, just like the picture above. How about you put this stethoscope on and listen to my chest first? Or let me show you how I use this tool on your bunny. Especially if working with a child or teen and the caregiver is present, you can always ask the caregiver to model the expectation with you first. Okay, mom, I'm gonna get your blood pressure first, so let so-and-so can see what it looks like. If you're with an adult, grab a colleague or a friend or a family member to model with you. These are extra steps, but the extra 2 to 3 minutes will have a big payoff. Now, this is not an antecedent-based strategy. If we were in person, I would totally do a pop quiz, but I'll save the day for today. This comes after the behavior, so this is a consequence-based strategy. We call it positive reinforcement or praise. Let them know when they got something right. Hearing you got it right or good job will encourage anyone to keep doing what they're doing or to do it again in the future. Not only will it cement the new expectation that they're learning, it will also boost their confidence. And it just feels good, right? So some examples could be, thanks for sitting in the room with me, or good job letting me take your temperature, and should still be used even if everything doesn't go as planned. So you told me no really nicely. I could definitely talk about strategies for hours. There are so many and so many different strategies for different scenarios. I hope you wrote down some examples that apply to you directly or brainstormed how some of these strategies could apply to your interactions. We covered a lot of content, and I hope that you leave today knowing a little bit more about autism, a little bit more about SARC, a little bit more about inclusion, and last but not least, I hope you find these strategies easy to use and valuable. We always say that learning about autism and inclusion is a journey and not a destination. Again, I thank you for inviting me to speak to all of you today, for your support and acceptance of autism. And I appreciate that you are dedicated to providing a meaningful experience to people in your community, whatever that might look like for you. I know that an hour is a long time to listen to someone talk, but also recognize that it's not enough time to learn everything that there is to know about autism. I would love to hear from you. One last time though, take a moment and type into the chat what is one thing you're walking away with today, or one thing that you learned about autism and inclusion. Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Choices, and Marina, choices for children with autism, give them choices. Amanda, I'm excited to share this with my staff. Great training tools. And choices, yes, choices are, again, my go-to. So I love that everyone is walking away with that as well. SARC has online resources, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, thank you all for your stellar participation and engagement today. I know online trainings can be difficult to sit through. I did want to share just the references for the numbers that I pulled. The current numbers, so they're from 2021, were pulled from CDC and Autism Speaks. You'll also find great resources and information about autism on their websites. So if you are looking to learn even more than what we covered today, those are great places to start. And if you want to learn more about SARC, ways to support SARC, more about services that I mentioned today, events that we have coming up, all that good stuff, I'm going to leave this up on the screen for about 20 seconds. This is our website name, autismcenter.org. I know it'll also be shared in the email follow-up where there's going to be an evaluation and resources that we covered today.
So Kelsey, we did have a couple of questions early in the chat regarding SARC. Somebody asked if families need to be low income to get assistance to join the program.
Yes, so we do have grant funding available. We are very fortunate for that. We have a family resource hotline. I can share that number with you to include in the resources that go out to it, and they can kind of walk you through what programs are available and what funding is available.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And as Kelsey had mentioned, of the resources, I'll be sending out an email. When you joined, you got an evaluation link, and please do the evaluation. That's great information. We will have certificates, and you can request that within the evaluation process. Normally when we have in-person sessions, you have a form that you fill out. Well, for virtual, we've been able to figure out how to get those certificates, but you got to give us the information through the evaluation piece. So it's just one evaluation. It'll take about 6 minutes to be able to respond to that. And if you miss that window, I will be sending out an email to all of you that were joined us today. It'll have the link for the evaluation. I'll leave it open for a couple of days so you can finish that. And then we will need to close it so that we can process for those continuing education credits. We also have another in our series of the autism, which is going to be on May 27th. It's going to be from 9 to 11:30, which is Arizona time or Pacific time. And it's called Do This, Not That. And Joanna, if you'd like to, would you like to talk a little bit more about that? Your mic is muted. Hold on a second.
So sorry,
There we go.
No, we just look forward to having you register for the second part of our series. As you can see, we're providing through SARC a wonderful series, lots of learning, and we just look forward to you registering for the second part, like you're mentioning. Thank you, Melanie.
Excellent. And again, in the some of the resources that Kelsey has mentioned, I will also put in the email to all those that were participating today. So you don't have to worry about quickly writing it down, or if you missed part of the URL, I'll make sure that we have that. We are recording it. So once the recording is done, it gets kind of cleaned up a little bit, and we will be posting it on the Arizona Telemedicine Program website. But I will also have that link in that thank you email to everybody, reminding them. And you will also be able to download a copy of the handouts of Kelsey's presentation today. Now, let me just take a look back into the chat here.
I do see two more that I can answer really quick. If you don't mind, I hop in.
Sure, please.
We do have 4 centers currently. They are all located in Phoenix. 1 is in Tempe, 2 are downtown. And we're looking to really expand in each pocket of Arizona, hopefully. So we do also offer services through Zoom. I see that question, Chris. And so that is definitely an option to look at for the remote parent training. It could be done through Zoom. So thank you for those 2 questions, definitely.
Also, another question I see here is, do families need to be low income to get assistance to join the program?
No, so we do take a variety of insurance providers. We have a variety of programs and resources available. The grant funding is just an option for some families that may need it. Lots of great participation and questions today, though. Thank you, everyone. I'm reading through some of the takeaways today and just really appreciate everyone who joined.
So I have another comment. You're talking about how choices, and even in ourselves, going to the doctor's office, and yes, getting on the scale. No, I don't want to see that number either. So the choice would be to either face the number or step on it backwards. All right, the healthcare worker can write down that number, but I don't want to see it, and they can put it in my record. That would be my choice.
Yes, that is a beautiful example. And it applies, across everything in everyday life. And so I love that your example hits on that personal piece too.
Exactly.
I don't want to see the number. I'm going to face the other way.
Right. They're still getting the information that's needed for the chart.
Yep.
All right, but here's the choice.
Yep.
Here's
I don't
the
need to see it. Maybe in 2022, but just not this year.
Excellent. And again, if you had any other, we'll be able to get the contact information for Kelsey and Sark, and I'll be sending that out in an email a little bit later today, and with the recording. Again, it was recorded, so you'll be able to view this later and maybe get some more information, some more ideas, and pause it and think about it and reflect. And again, thank you very much, Kelsey.
Thank you.
So May 27th is the next program, and it's going to be with Megan Mann. She's also a senior clinical consultant with SARC, and she'll be talking about the description of that program is the social and communicative deficits are at the core of autism spectrum disorder and can result in skill deficits and excesses of maladaptive behaviors. Explore a set of evidence-based interventions and teaching strategies to replace deficits with a set of meaningful and functional skills to increase success in a home and community setting. And again, you'll be able to see that at the end of the evaluation. There's a link that you can go and register for that for May 27th. And it doesn't look like we have any other questions coming in right now.
I saw one way earlier about how COVID is impacting the autism population currently. I think just like everyone here, it impacts in different ways. As you can imagine, it was an abrupt stop to their schedule, to their routine. So I'm sure that was hard for a lot of people who have a diagnosis. It was hard for me. I think that, a big thing that we saw as an organization is we lost the opportunity to create social opportunities. So we went from programs that would have large groups, small group peer interactions to we really couldn't facilitate that to keep everyone safe. So those were just some of the more general things that I noticed, but again, everyone's individual response to it, I'm sure, is a little bit different.
Right. And yes, in the email that I will send out, there will be a reminder for the next webinar as well. And then once you register, you get an automatic reminder email from Zoom, I believe the day before and even an hour before that program.
There's another question from Lori Gomez. Does a parent get the link or make a connection through your website?
Great question. So they would go through the intake process first just to identify which program would be the right fit. If they're doing the remote parent training program, there would be a coordinated schedule and a coordinated Zoom link specifically for that family and that behavior analyst. So that would be something that they would get after enrolling.
Another question from Alan Fote. What are all the programs that you offer there?
Oh my goodness, such a good question. There are a lot. It would take a really long time to answer this question, but we do have services across the lifespan. Milestones is a program for infants, and it goes up to programs for adults where they're living on their own, working at jobs, having support through all those interactions. But our website will be a really helpful tool for you to take the time, click through each one, and learn more about them.
And a question from Marina, is there any scientific evidence that autism is connected to vaccines or immunizations? If not, why are parents claiming they will not immunize their children? Where do they get this information from that autism is connected to immunizations?
Great question, and one that we get very common. So it all started with a research study that had some data that was falsified, and that research has since been taken off, retracted, and that person lost their medical license. And so since then, studies have shown that there is not a direct link or cause from vaccinations, but we of course don't want to speak for everyone's experience, and just want to be really mindful of we follow the data. And so that would be the area that I would encourage you to look into, is reading through some of the research that has shown that there is no cause.
And very important, how do we do the evaluation is a question, and a reminder that your certificates will be available requested within the evaluation itself. So Melanie, can you kind of give them the directions? I see the evaluation link is already attached to the chat. Thank you, Melanie.
She's so fast, look at her go.
So there's the active URL link to the evaluation. When you exit the program, another pop-up window will come up into the SurveyMonkey. We use a SurveyMonkey for being able to do this evaluation. And I will also send it in a thank you email. If you don't have time to do it right now, you'll get that email, and you can do it later this evening or tomorrow, or even over the weekend, because I'll end up closing it next week, so that we can get those certificates processed for the continuing education. There are CEUs that were approved for nursing, and it was in process with the American Academy of Family Physicians for CMEs as well. And then also general professional development certificates you can also request. So everybody's welcome to get a certificate for attending today, and you can, it's just the easiest, because there's certain information that needs to be collected, and it's in that SurveyMonkey and that evaluation link. There's just a little one page, and fill that information out. Looks like you got a couple questions in the chat there.
Yep, so I see our parents and families able to participate in the remote services you guys offer for now, even if they do not reside in the Phoenix area. That is a great question, and really depends on the program and a few other factors as far as insurance providers, et cetera. So I'm going to have redirect you to the Family Resource Hotline to get some more specific answers. That one, unfortunately, is not a general yes or no.
And Monica, we can get some information in the email I can get sent to you. We can address that and send you that link as well.
Absolutely.
And another question from Lori is, how can families support a parent who does not accept his or her child's autism diagnoses?
Great question, Lori. So we often see, you know, it's the process of grief, really. You're going through and learning through something new about your child. And I think that'll really be dependent on that specific family. And so you'll know that family more than I know, but I think support in any sense of the word is going to be best applied in a situation like that. So being a listening ear and letting them know of resources that you do know about, and also knowing when maybe they're just not ready to talk about it yet, or talk about it with family yet. Maybe they need somebody else to talk to about it.
Great. So that is about our time for today. Thank you everybody for joining us. And again, please do the evaluation and check out our next in the series on May 27th. And have a great day, everybody.
Yes, thank you everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for your participation, everyone. See you in the next webinar.